Hey guys, welcome to Levi's Crafting. I just got done building a bunch of dungeon tiles for a friend of mine, and I learned how to make dungeon tiles from a YouTuber channel called Black Magic Craft, and I've been practicing for a while to get better and better, and I honestly feel like I've created multiple different things based off of what he's taught me and what he's shown me. And there's some things that I just kind of learned on my own. So I thought I would share some of that stuff with you. It's not a super hard thing to get into. Orangey, go play, man. As I was saying, it's not a super hard thing to get into. Super cheap, super affordable. Right here is pretty much what all my stuff is made out of. It's just foam. And it's not just any foam either. This is like dollar store foam. It's the best foam you can use. Don't buy foam from like Walmart or wherever. The dollar store foam is one, cheaper, and two, it has a paper that you can just peel off. And you don't need any fancy tools or nothing. X-Acto knife. And I got this little screwdriver on me that you can, if you got one, you can use. But if you have a mechanical pencil, it's cheaper and it's easier to use. So I suggest using a mechanical pencil tip. Don't let the lead out though, just the plastic part. It'll create lines just fine. And then a horsehair brush for wood and stuff like that. If you got the money, what I've been building most of my stuff with, I've had it for a few years, is a proxong table. I've marked on it like exact inches with marker, so that way I can line this thing up with whatever inches I need. It's a little dirty, sorry about that. It's got this nice board, or a nice metal piece that helps keep your stuff going straight. And then you can adjust like how thin or how thick of a line you want to cut. If you want to cut just two pieces to keep it nice, square, and even, you want it down to like 2, maybe 3. That'll allow it to pass through easily without catching the wire. So if it catches the wire, it'll create little bulges in those spots where it catches. And it's not so great. The whole reason I decided to get that is because he showed me the simple way, and for a while I used the simple way, but he also showed me that that is a more efficient tool and it makes it easier to do the job that you want done. But obviously you can't do fine detailing. Alright, so first thing that you do is you get your piece. Now, I'm not exactly going to measure or nothing, but take your X-Acto knife. Let's say this right here. That's about an inch. You really can't see it because it's been cut with a knife. It's nice and thin. But you go through with your mechanical pencil and or screwdriver, and now it creates an actual little groove. That's a lot easier to notice. Or with the Proxon, you can just turn the heat up to whatever size that you're wanting. Actually, I'm going to show you my old school ones. To whatever size you're wanting, and it will melt the plastic in these nice divots. So that way it gives depth to it. And one thing I decided back when I started making these is I wanted to make them double-sided. So this side we have grass, this side we have stone. And I decided to try to show people that there are two separate pieces, that I would add a line in the center of them. Which, as you can see, didn't turn out super great. These were my very first attempt at following his YouTube videos. And then there's this one which turned out a little nicer. You got the line going through the center, and then you got the stone on this side. The one good thing about these is it shows you imperfections aren't a bad thing in stone or in the foam, because you can make it look like pieces are broken off, so when you put them together, clearly that's some sort of a hole there, whatever, or a big fissure in the ground, difficult terrain, whatever. Same thing with this side. The earth is all cracked and crumbled in those areas. You can come up with whatever story you want. It's Dungeons and Dragons. Make up whatever you want. We cut a little bit ago. I'm going to show you what the horse brush does. It creates these little rips and tears, which when painted give a nice wooden look, which is what I used for this. I also used the X-Acto knife to cut the bricks into this thing, which, as you can see, it's an old rickety fallen apart bridge. The easy way that I did that is after I got done cutting with my X-Acto knife, creating my lines, I looked for weak points that didn't look like they were going to hold up very well. And then I took my knife and I just gouged them out to make missing spots in the brick, to make it look like it's old and decrepit and falling apart. I also have this nicer stone bridge, which has some degeneration in it, or degradation in it, but for the most part, pretty sound, pretty sturdy, just missing a few pieces. You can literally come up with any idea that you want. Here, paint a piece of foam white. It makes a good wall. Bam. Or an old house. Bam. Simple enough. I've also made doorways. If you cut out the piece, you can even have an actual door. Or a hidden door. Ooh, fancy. But this is all stuff that I kind of learned from his channel, and if you want better tutorials, go check him out for sure. He's been doing it a lot longer than I have. I just kind of do it on my free time. He does it as his job. I'm wanting to make Dungeons & Dragons my job, but as of right now, it's not. Alright, so here's another piece. You can tell it's not as square, not as nice as the other one. Well, that's because this was one of the first tiles I made along with those square ones, and I wanted nice building tiles. Well, what happened was, after I got done painting and I got done putting some of this stuff on, which I'll tell you about here in a second, I decided to put some clear spray sealant on it. Well, the chemical that allows aerosol to spray, I didn't fully paint it and seal it enough as I thought I did, and it ate right through it on a few of these pieces. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to make them ruins. Get a few of these put together, and they're old ruins in the woods or wherever I want to put them. But it worked out. It was, as Bob Ross would say, a happy mistake. When I found that out, I was able to make a whole bunch of different ruined tiles. I made long ones, short ones. I made ruined doorways. ruin bridges, all kinds of stuff. And it's kind of fun when you're creating and crafting and you come up with this stuff and you find this stuff and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Now I can incorporate that into other things and keep my stuff growing. Another thing you can do is, here's one of my newer-ish tiles. Again, I chose to do the split down the middle. I don't know why I like that idea, I just did, but I decided to make this two-way one. Stone walkways for like in a town, or wooden floors for inside a house. And this kind of shows with this, like, you could have just plain stone and it looks fine, but a lot of like walkways and a lot of like brick roads and whatever else, they may have some of this, but a lot of them also have different colored bricks put into them. Like, they're not just one solid colored brick. So I decided to do that, and I think it makes it pop a lot more. I think it really shows the creativity a lot better. And then you got the wooden floors, which I did not use this for this, and I should have. I used the X-Acto knife to cut like somewhat evenish lines and then spread them out with this. And honestly, I only did it because I was somewhat in a rush and I couldn't find my horsehair brush, but it did not turn out as well as this side did. This side looks so much better. So much more proud of this side than I am the other. And that's really upsetting me because I really liked the idea of going from outside of town to inside a house, which was kind of the same idea behind this of walking in the woods, going into a cave. But moving on, with all the practice I've had and all the work that I've had, I decided I would try to present a nicer, more solid tile. And that's when I came up with these. They're a lot more evenly squared. There is no stupid center line. I just painted the borders black. I feel like it gives more definition and more actual set to the frame, because like if I do that, it still looks like this is just a square tile. It just looks solid. It really stands out against everything. And then they wanted grass and stone because that's my generic tiles that I do. So you got grass on one side, stone on the other. And you can do these in any size. Literally, boom. Just big old like chunks. And then you got your little 3x3s. Your little walkways, which the walkways I did a little different. I didn't do one side grass, one side stone with the walkways. Because if you're in a cave, most likely all the different parts are like segments are connected through stone because you're in a cave. But when you're outside, a lot of the pathways and stuff like that are mud. So I painted it with this just base brown. I mean, it's nothing spectacular. It's just mud colored. And I did some size like that, and then I did some that are just a little bit longer to make it easier to connect pieces and stuff like that. Another thing, like, again, to show how imperfections work, this foam had some divots and some holes in it. So I painted that side to look like stone. And I painted the smoother side to be grass. But it gives like texture to the stone. It, like, obviously the stone is worn out over years and has crumbled away partially. Or, like this one, there's a huge gouge in the foam. So I painted it blue, put some plastic over the top of it, and now you have a water puddle. Just a fun little idea. Anytime you see a mistake, don't throw that foam away. it could be used to make something cool. This isn't something that I saw on Black Magic Craft that he showed me. This is something that when I was making another set of tiles for another friend, I came across that and I was going to throw the tile away. And my girlfriend said, "Don't do that. Why don't you put some plastic over that? Make it look like water and put the plastic on it so that way monsters and creatures and stuff can sit on there." And I was like, "That's a brilliant idea, babe. I love that idea. Thank you very much for that idea." And so, since I saw that in this foam when I made this set for this person, I decided, you know what? I'm going to give them a little water puddle too. Why not? Alright, so those are a bunch of the different tiles that I've made recently. I showed you some of the tools. Now to get over to this is Mod Podge mixed with a little bit of black paint. It turns it like a slight gray color. It really seals the foam. I don't have much left because I ended up using a lot. There's not very much left in there. But I ended up using a lot to make these, honestly. But it makes the foam a lot more durable. I mean, you got this, which is boom, boom. And then you got this, where it's like, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to accidentally actually snap it from too much force, because it is still foam. But that's not really going to break foam either. So, I guess a better example would be like, boom, there we go. There we go, there's a better example. But it hardens the foam. It makes the foam a lot more dense, which is why also, like, as you heard, a lot more dense. So they're harder to break. You still have to be somewhat careful with them because, again, they are still foam, stuff like that. But for the most part, they're a lot more durable. They're a lot better base-wise. They're obviously not as good as resin. They're not as good as whatever, but that's also why mine are cheaper, is because they're made with cheaper materials. They're good materials, but they are cheaper materials. So I'm able to sell mine at a cheaper price. The set that I made for her is roughly 4 of these, 6 of these, like 15 of these, 4 of these, and 4 of these. And besides cost of materials and time that I have to put into it and stuff like that, I ended up charging her like $40 for it all. I think that's because I undersold it a little bit for her, as I realized how much materials I actually had to put into it, which I still turn a pretty good profit, but it's a lot of time that I put into it. Like, profit-wise, like if I was just able to just poof this stuff out of the materials that I bought, I could have probably sold it to her for maybe like 10 and still made a pretty good profit. But the amount of time and effort that it took, I feel like I undersold it at 40. So if anyone's interested in these and I start becoming a bigger channel, or people start seeing these and want to buy them, honestly, I'd probably start charging about $50. 50, maybe 60 for the whole set. But I'll put pictures at the end of this to show you just how many like square inches that takes up for Dungeons & Dragons feet or Pathfinder feet. I have an entire battle mat, and it covers almost the entire battle mat with tiles. So it's quite a bit. It's like 1,200 square feet in Dungeons & Dragons like size. which is a lot of area to run around and move in that game. But going on beyond that, I feel it's not a bad price for it all, because I bought myself just some simple tavern pieces, which came with like a couple tables, a couple chairs, some stools, and then a little bar, and that little tiny set cost me $40 just for that. Okay. Come on, man. Go play. Cats. Too many. Anyone looking for some cats? Sorry. Back to what we're doing. Alright, so I feel like it's not a bad price, honestly, for the amount of tiles that you get. Like, even if you go through Dwarven Forge, like, you might get, like, a small room of tiles. Again, better built because they're resin and whatever else, and I get that. Plus, they have, like, LED lights and they're whatever. But you might get, like, a small room for, like, $40. Where with my tiles, you could make multiple rooms. You can make pathways. You can make aisles. You can make ground base. Plus, they're all double-sided. So you don't just have 1,200 square feet of forest. You also have 1,200 square feet of like cave or old buildings or whatever. Like, it's up to you what you want to make out of it. But you have 1,200 feet of grass and 1,200 feet of stone, which is a lot of area, because that's literally like 2,400 square feet of whatever you want it to be in the full sense. Plus, I'm not going to toot my own horn, but I feel like these look pretty nice, especially when they're like butted up together. You can kind of match them because I created those little lines there. So you can kind of match them so that way they're evenly placed with each other. Plus, if you have them like a little separated, the black just kind of makes it look like a drop, like a cavern or whatever. Again, creativity is key. But I ended up using this whole thing of Mod Podge for it. Plus, this thing was already halfway full before I started this, so I emptied it and then refilled it and then almost emptied it again, which is a lot. And then for paints, I don't really go out all crazy on like regular paints and whatever else. Just regular acrylic Walmart paint is good enough for me. Like, if you want to buy the little more expensive ones, whatever you can, but the most expensive ones are like $2 and something cents, which isn't that bad. Cheapest ones are literally 99 cents to $1. And then just buy yourself some generic brushes. These 3 brushes are all I used for this whole set that I painted. And it was actually more or less just these 2 guys right here. He was for the Mod Podge, and then for the base coat of the dark brown for the grass or the black for the stone. And then he was used for the gray tops for the stone or the dark green grass for the forest. Occasionally I use this guy to do that, but for the most part it was the other guy. And then I would go back to this guy and he'd be my dry brushing. I'd grab a little bit of the light green or a little bit of the sand, and I'd dry brush the light green onto it to where you have light green textures, or the sand for the sand textures, over the stone, stuff like that. It's not crazy price. I mean, with the dollar foam, a dollar foam board is massive. You can make a crap ton of stuff out of it. But, so, dollar store foam, so $1. I think this cost me about $5, so you're up to $6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So if you want all this material, about 25, maybe 40 bucks to buy all of it, if you want to buy all of it to make it yourself. But if you're just doing like a small set, $4, $5. You buy a little tub of this if you're just making a small set, like a couple squares or a couple pieces for yourself. This I think was like $3. The smaller one's like $1.50 or $2, something like that. And then 99-cent paints. And on this set, I did run through the base coat colors. So not as much on the brown as I did the black, just because I also painted the borders black. But even with all those tiles that I listed off, I still have some black left in this. And I even mixed some of the black with the Mod Podge to create this color. So if you're only doing small projects here and there, these will last you a long time. Some of the paints that I have from like painting miniatures and painting my older tiles and painting all my other tiles, a lot of the paints I have, besides the white and the black, those seem to burn through the fastest, obviously. But a lot of the paints I've had since I started Dungeons & Dragons, and I've been doing this for maybe, I want to say going on 5, 6 years I've been playing now. So they will last you a while. You don't need any of the fancy like miniature paints and stuff that you buy offline. I mean, I'm sure they obviously make miniatures look better. They probably look shinier and nicer and whatever. But I've painted a lot of miniatures with acrylic paint, and I've gotten a lot of compliments off them. Like, you can do it. It looks good. I haven't had an older video where I showed you a lot of my miniatures, and most of those were painted with acrylic paints. So, alright, I think the next thing we're going to do is we're going to simply make one. So I'll see you guys in just a sec. Okay, so I'm all out of dollar store foam. This foam's pretty much the same stuff. This foam came out of a box that I bought from Walmart when I bought myself a bookshelf. They had some foam inside, so I'm going to make this out of this foam, which, just to try to show you, you can do this out of anything. It doesn't matter. So we're going to make I think we're going to make a 3x3. Set that there, lock it in place. Make sure our marks align to make sure it's going to be even. Change our dial to 3. We'll turn it on. I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but this right here is turning a nice red color. It actually just technically burnt me a little bit. I mean, it didn't hurt, but you can see a white line because it technically burnt the top layer of my skin. But you take this foam, set up right against that wall, and you just slide it. And it just cuts right through the foam. Boom, just like that. Nice and easy. Now, this foam is, I feel like, too thick to make it a double-sided foam. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to measure it on this thing. Looks like it's a little over an inch big. So we're going to drop it to about 1/2 inch, which is right about there. And we're gonna run it through. Nope, it's not right about there. Oh, that's where 1/2 inch is, but this thing's a little bit bigger than an inch. So we're gonna actually eyeball it. Right about there. I'm gonna run this right on through. Boom, just like that. And now we got 2 pieces. If you're wondering if you were able to see that smoke on the camera, that smoke is foam that got caught on this thing. You should be wearing a face mask. This is not good to breathe. So you should be wearing some sort of face mask while doing this and have some sort of ventilation, like a window open or something like that, for safety reasons. All right. So we're gonna move on now that we got this done. And we have our 3x3. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drop our thing down to 2 inches. Come on, buddy. I love you, but I'm trying to do a video here, man. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna take this little square, we're gonna turn this up by 1, and we're gonna slowly lead him up to it, and we're just gonna kind of let it melt the side. We're gonna do that all the way around. And then we're going to flip it. We're going to do that all the way around. Now we're going to look at it, and I'm going to notice that off the bat, this one right here did not engrave the way I wanted it to. So we're going to melt it a little more, just get that little divot. Alright, so now we got our little divots on each side. What that will do is it will let us know just how squared up we have this at. So we're going to hold this up to it and let it melt. Let it melt. Let it melt. And let it melt. Boom. Done, just like that. Now that one's ready for painting. Alright, so now for this one, I'm going to move him aside, and I'm going to show you the X-Acto knife and the other thing. So I'm going to use this one as reference because I don't have my ruler up here. So I know right there is 1 inch. Right there is another inch. Right here is 1 inch. And right here is the other inch. So now we'll place this right between those 2 lines. And I'm going to cut. Go back over it another time just to make sure I cut all the way through the foam. It's okay to make a few passes. You just want to make sure you get that cut. And then you'll take your screwdriver and you run, or a mechanical pencil, Like I said, the mechanical pencil works better. This is not going to look super great. And it creates a little divot. And now we shall cut this one. The problem with not having your ruler on you is the fact that it's a lot harder to make a straight cut. So these may not be exactly inch by inch by inch. Like that, I definitely did that too far over. I think the actual line I cut was right there and I just misread where I cut it. Again, that's why rulers are good, because with a ruler and a marker or something, I could actually mark 1 inch, 1 inch. So since I've already messed up that one, I already know that's messed up, I'm just gonna cut this one. There. Made a little bit of a mess on myself because foam being pulled falls apart sometimes. Woo! Foam being pulled apart falls sometimes, or falls apart sometimes. Okay, so that's the difference that it kind of leaves. These are finer lines, these are thicker lines, but these are cleaner lines, where these lines are a little more messy. So if you want a more natural texture, probably go with this one. Plus, since it keeps the lines somewhat thinner, it'll look more like a grid on your tiles instead of actual squares that instead of actual like squares that your characters are walking on. A little less realistic, but looks nicer. Alright, so the next thing is we're gonna move to paint. Alright, so we're gonna start with our Mod Podge. Get a nice coating of that on the brush. And we're just going to coat the top of this. Now I would normally coat the whole thing, but since this is just a demonstration piece, and like I said, I use most of it actually making the tiles for the person, I'm just going to do kind of a nice thin coat on here. We'll be showing white through your tiles. If you end up with a few, it's really not a big deal for you to miss some, but you want to purposely try to get as many as you can. And then this is just to clean up some of that excess glue that's on there. Okay. Now we'll do this one. piece of foam stuck to it. Almost there. I'm running really low. Okay, and one thing I've noticed actually with this is I was wrong. I mean, you can still work with it, obviously. But this foam, just from already using it, this is like the first time I ever tried to use it, I assumed it would be the same or similar. This foam is made up of a bunch of little, like, circular foam pieces that are all kind of pushed together, which seems to have made this a lot more difficult. It still looks alright, don't get me wrong, but I think that's why it looks as caved in and all that stuff that it does, is just because of all those foam balls that literally just got knocked off with the X-Acto knife. So then there's that one. So that's the difference between the two. And now we need to wait for the Mod Podge to dry. So, see you guys in just a second from now. Alright guys, so they're all dry. Can you hear the difference? So, we're going to color these the same way. They're both going to be grass pieces, just so you can, again, visually see the difference between the two and how it looks. Okay, there you go. Alright, so cover this one. Alright. Now, try to coat this one. Get the extra paint off my brush. Run back through these lines. Alright, and now that shouldn't take super long to dry. So we'll be right back when that's done. Alright, and we're back. So next we're going to put green on the tiles. Show you how they look. Okay. Now for these, what I do is I color going around. And then the center square. One more coat over the center one. Green got caught in there like a puddle. If there's too much paint on there, it won't dry right. So all the puddles of green I gotta get rid of. The cool thing about this having the grooves is you can actually brush across. You don't have to worry about getting inside where you don't want to get by accident. So that's one reason why I like doing it this way, besides the more uniform lines. All right, so now, here you go. They work for what you need them for. I mean, obviously you can tell that's like a grassy area, whatever, but again, just it's cleaner, it's nicer, but not everyone has. I believe my Proxon was like $150 just to buy it alone, which it came with wire, it came with the base thing, it came with all that stuff, but still a lot of money. Not everyone has money to just buy something like that. And with the dollar store foam, it does cut better than this. It cuts a lot better than this when you use the thing. This foam is no different than the dollar store foam if you're using the Proxon. It melts the exact same, it moves the exact same. Virtually no difference. But if you're wanting to actually cut your foam and you're wanting to stylize it the way like I had those bricks and whatever, go with the dollar store foam. Don't just use any foam that you get. Otherwise, it may look like this. It could also be the fact that I had to use a screwdriver instead of a mechanical pencil to kind of press it down. Because the screwdriver is a long needle with like 4 prongs on the end of it, because it's a Phillips head, where a mechanical pencil is a small, thin, little metal or plastic bar with a soft, rounded top to the pencil, so it pushes more than it like grinds through. So that could also be a major issue too. That could have came out of this too. Experiment, have fun, figure out for yourself how you like it. But now we just gotta wait for this to dry. Okay. Smush him down to, and just so you know, it's better to actually let them dry, because the more the Mod Podge and the more layers of paint and all that other stuff that you put on this stuff, the thicker coat it gives around the foam to make it more durable. Which makes it to where it's like the other ones where it's harder to break. I just want to keep the video going for you guys, so I'm kind of speed. Plus, as you saw with the other ones I had, and then you look at this one, or even it did it with this one too, you can now see some of the brown showing through, which isn't bad, because again, it just kind of makes it look like dirt in through the grass. So it's not a bad thing, I guess, if you did it this way. But personally, again, I kind of like nice, clean looks to things. Even though, again, it is dirt, so I feel like this would be the better way. But nevertheless, now we're going to do our dry brushing. So what you do with dry brushing, there's like 1,000 videos out there. I'm pretty sure you've probably seen them all, or probably seen most of them already. You already know. But let me tell you again anyways. You coat your paintbrush with whatever paint you're going to use. I'm going to take a little bit off of the edges. What you normally do is you get rid of most of it, so that way it's coated in there well, but it's like a very small amount that's coated throughout there. So when you glide over whatever you're doing, it puts as little paint on as possible. But what I'm actually going to do, throw some wet paint on the sides. Okay, so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to tap it around the edges. This is not something I've seen him do in his videos, but it's something that I tried once, and I just like how it makes it look. It's just something that I tried, and I liked the look of it. And I just like the look of it. So what you do now is you get rid of virtually everything. Like, try to make it so there's literally almost nothing on your paintbrush. Like, you want to barely even see anything on there. And then you're going to take it. I'm going to actually get rid of some of this because there's some bulky sides on here. Okay. And you're going to take it and you're going to just glide your brush over it like that. And it gives dark green for your actual forest floor. And then it kind of highlights the edges. So when you put them together, they kind of, it gives each square or each block its own section of highlights. The bigger the square, the less highlights there are in the center, making it to where it's like more of a shadowed area, stuff like that. To where it nicely coats each side. And the cool thing about doing it this way too is not everyone's going to get the exact same amount of paint on the side. Not every single tile is going to be the exact same, which makes it to where I put too much paint on this one, but I pretty much just turned that into a green tile. So I was going to show you like how they can differentiate between each other. 1 second. Sorry about that. This is a good way to show like how they can differentiate between each other. They're not incredibly different, but they are different. Where I literally I turned that one into a light green square. There's no difference between the colors at all. So, but pretty much those are the steps of how you make these things, and everything else is personally your idea. Whether you have the line going through the center, painting the sides all black, painting the sides half like stone, half wood, half dirt, or even cutting them in half and making them single-sized pieces so they can sit on your table and they're not super bulky, which I guess these bigger ones aren't that bad. These actual dollar store foam ones. If you cut these in half, they'd be really thin. So. What you doing, buddy? Little tater. Alright, so, as I was saying, literally everything else is completely up to you. It's completely creative, up to you. It's just, that's generally how you do it. You cut them into whatever size squares you want, 3x3s, 4x4s, 2x2s. I don't suggest 1 by anything, though. Unless you're doing like a door, like that 1x1 that I had. Because, again, really fragile. Really easy to break. But if you got like a solid door, breaking one single thing isn't as easy. So making just a single door that you literally just place on there and pick up, if it drops, probably not going to break. But if you make it to where it's like long and it's super thin, there's a lot better chance of breaking. Even a 2 by whatever has a better chance of breaking than one of these. Because I'm not pushing super hard, don't get me wrong. I'm not like doing the whole, your tiles versus my tiles. I'm not doing that. I'm just like, it does require a little bit of pressure, and they're still pretty well okay. Where a 2 by 1 or whatever, like if you grab both pieces, you probably just, it'd still be easy to break, but it's a little harder to break one of these just because they are a little more durable. There's a lot more foam throughout, a lot more space used. Alright, so that's my video. I hope you had fun making dungeon tiles with me. I hope you had fun looking at all the different ones that I've made. I hope you've learned something. Again, it's fun to experiment. Just get crazy with it. I would have never found out that ruin thing if I wouldn't have tried to seal it with a sealer. If you want to seal it, a good way to probably seal it would also be to add like just regular Mod Podge over it. That'll dry clear. And if you want to add darker tones and stuff like that into it, something else you can do is you can buy washes, like a black or brown wash, and just brush that very lightly over it. Take your paper towels. You want to use paper towels for sure. Take your paper towel and just dab it back off, and it'll make all like the deeper, darker ends, like a richer color to make everything pop more. It's really good addition. But Again, up to you. Be creative. Have fun. Hope you have a good afternoon. Have a good night.